first started to experience like depression, like symptoms, I guess I know now they were, but in high school, I kind of had a hard time in high school with friends and everything else. Wasn't the best time of my life, and I just thought that was the reason why I was sad and like bummed all the time.
When I was 9, my dad committed suicide. I was living in New Hampshire at the time, and yeah, it was a shock. I didn't know that he had depression or anything, you know. So it was pretty rough.
My first encounter with depression started when I was pretty young, in elementary school, I guess. I noticed that I didn't really want to go anywhere, do anything, just basically wanted to just lay in bed all day, didn't want to talk to people or anything like that.
It didn't really get bad until my senior year of high school. I felt nothing, like I just felt empty and void. I was always a really good student, and my grades started to drop because I just didn't care about anything anymore. Instead of doing my homework at night, I would just sit in my room and stare at a wall. And I could sit and stare at a wall for over an hour or any amount of time because I just felt like nothing. I was tired. I had no energy to do anything. I started to pull away from my family and friends. For some reason, I believed that my parents didn't love me anymore, so I wouldn't really talk to them, spend any time with them. I would always just be up in my room.
It's not really a story, like one story in particular, but we lived in New Hampshire, we lived on a lake, Lake Sunapee, and we'd fish a lot and all types of outdoor stuff, but especially fishing. We'd fish in the summer, we'd fish in the winter, ice fish. And we loved fishing, but me and my brother didn't like to hold the fish. So whenever we caught a fish, and maybe a lot of dads do this, but he would stand behind us and like try to shrink up as much. He's a pretty big dude though, you know, broad shoulders. And so he'd be behind us holding the fish and we'd pretend that we were holding it, you know. He was on medication, but he had stopped it earlier in the year. So he committed suicide in August and he had stopped his medication in February because he didn't like some of the side effects. Everyone dealt with it differently. So some people were more open, some people were more closed about it, about talking about it and stuff. It was really rough for my mom, obviously. She knew that he had depression, she just didn't know how bad it was. So it was pretty rough for her to see it happen and, you know, have her not been able to help. So when you think you're going to be with someone forever, then, you know, something like that happens, you just kind of feel bailed on.
My depression was never severe, but I think even just having a little bit of experience with it has helped me to be able to sympathize with other people and understand that it's not something they can control. It's not just one day they're just in a bad mood or they're just feeling down. It's like something that affects your entire life. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand because they think that you should just be able to snap out of it or just, you know, be happier. But in reality, it's like not under your control. So I think having that experience has helped me see that it's not a choice that the people are making. It's a disease.
My mom kind of was like, hey, I think something else is going on. Like, this isn't you. You don't act this way. Like, what's going on? And that was like the first time that I finally told them. And I just remember feeling so stupid because I told them, I was like, I'm sad. And I have no reason to be sad.
Since my dad committed suicide, I've kind of always had an idea in my head that I should be aware of certain symptoms because it is known to be hereditary. So I joined the military in 2011, and about a year after enlisting, I started seeing differences in my personality that would change pretty drastically. And everybody knows me as a pretty outgoing person, you know. I like to joke around and be around people, but I would be really outgoing for a certain amount of time, and then it's like my body would shut down, and I would just shut everybody out. And it was for no reason. I wasn't mad about anything in particular. I just didn't want to see anybody. And part of it was because I was a little bit embarrassed because I didn't know what was going on.
I went to the doctor, and I remember just being so uncomfortable because you have to go in there and say that you're getting like an evaluation for maybe depression or something. So I remember sitting in the waiting room, and they gave me this sheet to fill out, and it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, how sad do you feel on a typical day? How much enjoyment do you have in things you used to enjoy? And it was kind of a realization that like every single thing on this list I was feeling, but I wasn't ready to talk about it or believe that something was wrong with me yet. So I didn't lie, but I didn't put the full extent of how I was feeling. And I'd go to these therapy sessions, and I would just sit there. And I remember one time she said something along the lines of how depression is something that is going to stick with me forever. She kind of did the whole chemical imbalance thing, and but the words of her being it's something you're going to have to work with and deal with for the rest of your life. And that was kind of that was it for me. I was like, Mom, I'm not going back anymore.
Me and my brother are really close, so when I noticed it, it went on for a couple months, and it was only happening in short spurts, so it only happened for 2 or 3 days. But in that time, I would just, in the military, you have barracks, you have dorms in college. And I lived by myself in my own room, and I would go into my room, and I'd shut the door, I'd turn off the lights, and I would just sit there, and I'd just wait for it to end. And it's the best way I could describe it is just waiting for the fog to lift, so you could go about being the person that you want to be. I told my brother about it. I said, I don't really know what's going on, but I can see drastic changes from what the person that I am, the person that whatever is happening makes me. And I said that if it ever gets bad enough, that I would call him, so it happened for about 2 years. And this July, it got pretty bad. I decided to call my brother and pretty much reach out for help. And initially, when I had told him, I said I can't deal with this myself anymore because I didn't want to deal with it in the military because I didn't. There's already a lot of misconceptions in the military about it. You have that kind of illness, you can't do your job. And for me, my job was my sanctuary from it, because I'd be so busy and so consumed, and I love it so much that it would keep me away from it. So I didn't want anyone to take that away from me because I didn't think I'd be able to handle it without, doing the job that I do. So how some people live for the weekends, I was living for the weekdays. I would just get through the weekend, and then I would get back to work, and I would work so hard, just to keep my mind off it. And people thought that I was working hard, and I was working hard to be good at my job, but I was also working so hard just to stay away from it, So I was able to progress pretty quickly inside the team that I was in. And it wasn't just because I like to work hard, but it was because I was running away from something else,
I just hung out with him the day before, and I didn't notice anything different or anything. And we had plans to hang out separately that night. I was going to go out with my friends, and he was going to hang out at his apartment with a bunch of his friends, and he was talking to them the whole night, and everything seemed fine. Then the next morning, I woke up, went to class, and he was gonna go over to his place after my class, like I did all the time. And I remember specifically walking there. I was following this guy the entire time, which I thought was super awkward. We both left Pangle and walked all the way from Pangle to Frank Hall. And he went into a room. I kept walking, and I opened Sean's door.
Things kind of all changed when I got to college. I kind of am, not so much more now, but back in high school I was a perfectionist. I was a straight A student, captain of the dance team, National Honor Society. Like, I held myself to very, very high standards. And when I got to college, it was a wake-up call that school's a lot harder, and I'm on my own, I'm away from my parents, and I feel like that was just such a conductive environment to kind of like make a really bad situation happen, because at the time I wasn't taking care of myself, which is what I needed to be. I was busy with dance. Like, dance took up a lot of time. Classes were hard. I was taking biology and chemistry. I was pre-vet at the time, so I was taking rigorous classes, and I was not doing as well as I was used to in high school. I mean, I had never failed a test before until college, and I did in chem. And that kind of like rocked my world that I failed a test. I also was struggling with an eating disorder at the same time. When I got to college, I was really nervous about gaining weight. The freshman 15 like loomed over my head all the time. Kind of got to college where I was so afraid that I just started to do it all the time. And it's almost like you kind of get addicted to it. I wasn't anorexic, I ate, but I purged every single thing that I ate. So I really wasn't feeding myself at all. It all changed my homecoming night, my freshman year. I chose to drink even though I was underage. And I went out, I had some friends visiting, and I went out with my friends and had a good time. I woke up the next morning and I was in my original room, and I was kind of like, whoa, what the heck happened? I don't remember coming home. Why am I here? So I called my friend who was there with me, and he explained to me what happened, and he said that, he was like, yeah, some lady came to the room, you know, she made us leave and like took down your name and everything. And I'm like, did I get a write-up? And he's like, I don't know. She took down your name and like your number, looked at your ID and everything. So kind of like a citation, like a behavioral write-up where I broke some rules. And it was like in that moment, my whole world was ending.
Every aspect of my life, I feel like I have somewhat of good control over. You know, I have control over how I work, the people I associate with, you know, the way I act. But when this hit me, I had no control. You know, I was like a victim to it. So I just would push people away, you know. And that was my way of dealing with it, you know, because I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want people to know that I had this, because people looked up to me, you know, and I didn't want to let anybody down, you know, which is silly that I would think that, but that's how I thought. I didn't want someone to say because I had this that I was incompetent to do my job, because it wasn't, you know. All it did was make me work harder, because I wanted to get away from it. But the reason it got so bad is because it started to affect me during work, so I wasn't able to do my job as effectively, and that's when I started to get kind of scared, because that was the one thing that I had, you know. Because even the things that I love to do, I took on surfing when I moved to California. I love to work out. I love to be around people, you know, talk with people, interact. But when this when the depression hits me, I don't like to do any of it. You know, it's like the last thing I want to do is to be around anyone or do the things I usually like to do. I just want to sit in the dark and wait for it to be over.
I opened Sean's door. And I saw him laying there. And I ran in there and I grabbed him and I shook him and was yelling him his name. And I knew that he was gone.
While I was on the phone with him, I decided, and I was like, oh, I'm doing this. It was like a flip of a switch, honestly. Like, there was no contemplation, there was no planning, there was nothing. And all of a sudden I was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back to my room and kill myself. And like, I was sitting in the room with 3 of my best friends at the time, and it didn't even cross my mind that they were there. I just got up and I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna go back to my room. And it's so weird, I was so calm. I walked back to my room, I got a water bottle, I filled it up with water, I grabbed all the pills in my room that I could find. I had like a bottle of like 400 ibuprofen. I grabbed some other things. And I went into the basement and I sat in an empty room and shut the door. And that's when it kind of hit me, and I think I kind of had a breakdown where I was like uncontrollably sobbing, and I've never really done that before. Like, it's just everything that had happened, like, I thought that I could never move past this, and that like I was a burden to my family for getting this write-up. My parents wouldn't be proud of me. And I sat there and I took all of them.
To tell the people that I work with, I tried a few times that I was like, I'm gonna do it today, I'm gonna do it today. And the people that I work with are masculine people, I guess, you know, like big, tall, built, you know, like bald dudes, like, you know, Marines. And I didn't want to have to go to them and say that I have an issue that's unrelated, you know. Because a lot of the guys that I work with have been in situations that would give them post-traumatic stress, you know. And with that comes depression, with that comes suicide, but I had none of that, but yet I still had the depression, you know. So it was hard for me to ask for help. I didn't feel like I had any right to ask for help around these guys, you know. So I had to write it down because I wouldn't have been able to say it. One day I just sat down in front of a computer and I wrote out what I needed to say, that it was becoming too much for me to handle by myself, and that they all know me, you know. They know the person that I am, but I'm asking for help. And that I needed to be taken seriously because I was in trouble, you know.
I went back into the hallway and just started screaming. I just said, somebody come out, call 911. And the guy who I followed all the way from Bengal ran back out of his room and came down the hallway and looked in and saw what happened, and then more people just kept coming, and eventually life safety was there and they wouldn't let me go back in there. I couldn't see him anymore. first time I saw him was he was coughing.
I started with the ibuprofen and I poured like a handful of pills at a time into my hand and would swallow them like the entire time, feeling like out of my mind. In the middle of it, I had a little bit of sense to text my family. I texted my 2 sisters and my parents simply, "I love you," and that was it. But even after I did that, I still kept going until all of them were done, until they all were gone. And I think my body kind of saved me because it obviously got very upset for having that many pills in it, and I had to run to the bathroom and I threw up. But even after that, I still was just like out of my mind, still sobbing. And at some point I realized, what the fuck did I just do?
It felt like I was watching myself. And it wasn't my life anymore. It was just a bad dream. And I just went through periods of just crying hysterically to just staring at the window. And I just kept thinking, why did he do this? Why didn't he tell me that he was going through this? And didn't he know how much I cared about him and what I would have done for him? Just question after question. There's no way to answer them. And I keep thinking what I would have done if he would have called me, or what I wish I could have told him. Just everything. Just when I would do to see him again. So many people didn't know how to act around me anymore. They didn't want to talk about it, bring it up, and some people it was just the opposite. They would just ask me really inappropriate questions. I got friend requests from people that I never met before. And it just made me realize how people just have no idea how to react to a situation like that.
The first medication I tried I had the longest depression spell I'd had since I had started seeing symptoms of it. It lasted a whole month, so that month was just me in my room, and eventually my brother just comes to my room and he knocks on my door until I answer because he knows I'm in there. He drives an hour to see me, and I don't have the wherewithal to just pick up the phone. And then other guys knock and they leave, but he knows I'm in there, so he'll knock and he'll just be like, "I know you're in there, open the door." And, so I started the one medication and it's not that it made me worse, but the symptoms lasted longer. So what usually lasts a week that I can handle lasted a month, and that sucked. So I jumped to the conclusion that it was the medication. I asked to get taken off it.
Some part of me didn't want to die, thankfully, and I called my sister, and I was just sobbing. I couldn't even speak, and she was like, "Natalie, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay." And she was just like, "Okay, I'm on my way." Like, she didn't ask any questions. She was gonna come up, and she hung up, and then I was like, I need to tell her. I can't wait. So I called her back, and I was like, "Allie, I think I need to go to the hospital. I took some pills." And from what she told me, I obviously don't know, I was just in my room. She instantly Googled life safety and ended up calling St. John's Life Safety and told them, and then they called St. Ben's, and I don't know, maybe it was 5 minutes before the life safety officers were at my door. Between those 5 minutes, I got so mad at myself for even doing this that I took a scissors out of my drawer and started to cut myself. And it wasn't, people think, people self-harm to numb the pain or whatever. It was a punishment for myself, is the way I thought of it, for doing this stupid thing, for taking that many pills. So I started to cut myself with the scissors, and that's how life safety found me, sitting on the floor of my dorm, bleeding with the scissors in my hand. It's just so weird, because even thinking about the ambulance ride, I was in an ambulance going to the hospital, and it just didn't seem like that big of a deal. I was just along for the ride. I got to the hospital and they brought me into the emergency room, and I was just sitting there, again, by myself still, just, what have you done? What did you just do?
The person that I sat down with my team leader originally, and I told him, and right away he said, let's go talk to, someone even higher up than him in our command, that would handle this type of stuff usually. So we went to talk to him, and again, I had to read the paper because I couldn't say it, So I read to him, and basically went from person to person that needed to know about it, and they got me in touch with people that I could get help from.
John was the funniest person I've ever met. I never saw a person that he couldn't make laugh. And he always saw the best in everybody. That's what I loved about him the most, is, when I would be having a bad day or be annoyed with someone or be angry at somebody, he would always try and see it from their point of view and just always tried to empathize with everybody. He really cared about everybody.
My sister, Allie, was the first one to get there. And honestly, that was something that was harder than even realizing that I tried to kill myself. It made me realize how much what I just did hurt the people that I love. And at the moment that I decided to do it, I thought that they wouldn't care. And then my mom came, and she was actually surprisingly strong, and I think that was really good for me. At that point in time, I was not suicidal. My mindset was what did I just do? I have people that love me. I want to live. It was a really fast turnaround for me. But it's still it made me realize the severity of what I just did is that I'm such a danger to myself that they can't even let me in a room alone. I was in there for a couple of days. They monitored my heart, and specifically, which is weird, my pee, because I took ibuprofen, and the ingredients in ibuprofen can basically destroy your kidneys. And then my doctor came in to talk to me, and he's like, I don't really know how to explain that you're still here. He's like, I have people down the hall or somewhere in this hospital, I don't know what he said, but he's like, I have people here that took less than half of what you did, and they're here waiting on a kidney transplant, on dialysis, like the rest of their lives are changed. Basically, he's just like, it's a miracle that you did not die or come out with any physical repercussions. It's hard to think about and talk about everything that happened, but I think it's very necessary, and I want people to hear it.
If I was talking to someone who told me that they were thinking about suicide, I would want them to know that there's so many people out there who love them and care for them, that some of them they don't even know who they are.
Tell someone that you can confide in, that you can trust, and explain to them that you need help, because it's not something that anyone can deal with by themselves, Maybe some can, but we'll never know because they don't tell anybody. But the people that do try to deal with it by themselves eventually get overwhelmed, and they get into a depressive state that they don't think they can get out of.
For me, it helps me to talk about it to heal. So I was able to talk to my friends and my mom about it, but some people very, very close to me to this day still don't talk about it.
So there's no shame in having to go to the hospital for a deadly illness like depression, because it is an illness that can kill you.
Before that happens, you need to have the wherewithal to ask for help, Humble yourself and just ask for help, even if it's embarrassing.
I know I am biased because I have experience in it, but it blows my mind that people think that people with depression or who attempt suicide or have mental illness are weak, because they are the ones that fight every single day. They fight something that nobody understands. They fight something that nobody will talk about. A lot of times, sadly, by themselves, because they don't even get help because they fear the judgment for it. And that breaks my heart, because if I didn't get help, I would not be here.